Welcome to the Sleepy Journeys Through Myths and Folklore podcast, your sanctuary to learn while you sleep. My name's Jack, and I'm so happy to have you here with me. Tonight, we're going to embark on a gentle journey through the story of Robin Hood. Settle in and let your breathing slow. Allow your body to soften as we prepare to wander through the legends of the Greenwood, where truth and tale blur beneath ancient boughs. This evening, we return to a time that never quite was, yet always has been, a place shaped by stories passed from lips to parchment to song over the course of centuries. Our story begins, not with a shout or sword, but with stillness. Imagine yourself in the heart of Sherwood Forest. A canopy of oak, elm, and ash stretches overhead, their ancient limbs sheltering the earth in cool shadow. Sunlight filters in soft patches through the leaves, dappling the mossy ground beneath your feet. Birds call from hidden perches, their melodies echoing in the hush. The forest lives and breathes around you, ageless and alive. Somewhere, not far off, a gentle breeze stirs the undergrowth, and with it, the faint twang of a bowstring. A deer, alert but unharmed, passes between the trees, vanishing into a quiet clearing. There, among twisted roots and fern-covered stones, a figure in green leans calmly against a tree. His eyes are kind, his smile easy. He is Robin Hood, or perhaps just the idea of him, a flicker of justice, rebellion, and kindness dressed in forest colors. Who was he truly? A nobleman fallen from grace? A common yeoman with a sharp eye and sharper heart? Or only a legend, conjured to speak for the people in times of hardship? Tonight, we'll follow his tale from root to leaf. We'll walk the hidden paths, meet his companions, glimpse his struggles, and share his quiet victories. Not in a rush, but in a slow unfolding, like morning mist rising from the forest floor. We'll begin with the forest itself, the stage upon which his legend unfurled. Then, we'll trace the many versions of his origin, explore the lives of those who stood beside him, and meet the shadows he defied. Along the way, we'll listen to the soft tones of justice, loyalty, and laughter that echo through the tale. This is not a tale of war or battle, but one of balance, between power and people, between crown and commoner, between light and shade beneath the trees. So, close your eyes if you haven't already. Breathe in deeply. Let the hush of the forest settle in your chest. You are safe here, in story and slumber. Robin Hood awaits just ahead, waiting with a knowing smile in the woods that never end. Before tales of daring deeds and clever escapes, before names like Little John or Maid Marian grace the leaves of old ballads, there was the forest. Always the forest. Sherwood. A name as soft and earthy as moss beneath bare feet. A place not only real but remembered, etched into the imagination as the backdrop of countless stories, each shaped by the rustle of leaves and the hush of green shadows. Sherwood Forest rests in Nottinghamshire, England, but in the minds of those who dream, it stretches far beyond the boundaries of any map. Imagine yourself stepping through a break in a hedgerow and entering its depths. The moment you cross that invisible threshold, the world begins to soften. Footsteps no longer echo, but are absorbed by the loamy earth, rich with the scent of damp wood and crushed bracken. Light loses its harshness, filtering through a dense canopy of ancient oaks and ash in gentle pools of gold. The forest breathes, not in the way people do, with rise and fall, but in cycles of stillness and motion. A branch sways. A leaf twirls slowly to the ground. Somewhere in the distance, a fox moves through underbrush, unseen but present. It's a living thing, this place, not merely trees and soil, but a presence, aware and eternal. Sherwood, in legend, is more than a forest. It is a sanctuary, a protector, a witness. It is both wild and wise, untouched, yet familiar. In this quiet world, time loosens its grip. You don't know if it's morning or dusk. The air is cool and steady, the kind that clings softly to your skin and carries the sweet breath of ferns and wildflowers. Here, the stories are embedded in the land itself. The roots of mighty oaks twist like old fingers into the soil, and if you placed your ear to one of them, perhaps you'd hear it, the murmur of tales older than any tongue could speak. Stories of kings and commoners, hunters and ghosts, laughter and lament. Among these, the most enduring whispers belong to Robin Hood. But tonight, there are no loud calls or galloping hooves. Just the trees and the path you walk, winding deeper into the green. Each step brings you closer, not to action, but to understanding. You are entering the soul of the story, not through sword or skirmish, but through the setting that gave it life. A fallen log lies across the trail, overgrown with soft moss. You take a seat, feeling the ancient wood give gently under your weight. Overhead, a squirrel chatters faintly before darting off into the upper limbs. The piece is near complete. There is no urgency here, no need to hurry. For in Sherwood, all things unfold in their time. It's where the outlaws found refuge, where the law paused at the edge of the trees, and where those who sought something more, justice, freedom, belonging, came to listen and be heard. You sit there now, in that same forest, perhaps not truly, but close enough in spirit, breathing its air, listening to its silence, feeling the weightless presence of stories all around you, waiting patiently for Robin to appear. As you sit quietly in the hush of the forest, a different kind of sound begins to drift through the trees. Not the flutter of birds or the stirring of breeze, but something more elusive, faint threads of melody and verse. These are the echoes of old ballads, carried softly on time's wind, whispering of outlaws who lived not only in the woods, but in the hearts of those who sang about them. Long before Robin Hood was a familiar figure in books or on screens, he existed in song, not grand operas or regal histories, but in the simple ballads sung by common folk. These songs were the lifeblood of medieval storytelling, sung in taverns and around hearths, on lonely roads, and in bustling marketplaces. They were not meant to be preserved, but to be shared, reshaped, passed from voice to voice, like a warm loaf of bread. In these early verses, Robin was already known as a clever outlaw, living outside the reach of corrupt authority, taking from the wealthy and easing the burdens of the poor. He was not a warrior in shining armor, but a man of the people. The ballads spoke plainly. He was good with a bow, sharp in mind, and fiercely loyal to his companions. There was a kind of reverence in the simplicity of it, a reflection of quiet hope that someone, somewhere, might challenge injustice with wit and heart. Scholars trace the earliest mentions of Robin Hood to the 14th century, where his name appears almost casually, as though everyone already knew who he was. A sly nod in court records, a reference in poetry. His story was already old by then, threaded into the fabric of folk memory. No single origin point, no single author, just a collection of tales and tunes shaped by the voices that needed him most. As you listen now in your imagination, you can almost hear those voices. A young woman in a cottage singing softly to her children as she spins wool. A tired traveler humming to himself beneath a hedge. A minstrel in a shadowy hall, plucking at a lute while lords drink and jest. Robin Hood lived in all of them. A symbol not of perfect virtue, but of daring kindness, cleverness, and balance in an unbalanced world. These songs, though faded with age, still murmur in the background of our understanding. They are the reason we know Robin at all, not because of royal decree, but because people chose to remember him, to keep singing, to pass on his name like a secret between generations. Back in the forest, you rise from your seat and begin walking once more. The trail narrows, the light shifts, but the songs remain, invisible yet present, guiding your steps. With every breath, you carry them forward, becoming for a moment part of the long chain of listeners and dreamers who came before. Robin Hood is near, not in form, but in feeling, just beyond the next bend, perhaps. And so the legend begins, not with thunder, but with a whisper, one that still lingers in the leaves. The figure of Robin Hood, though cloaked in the green shadows of Sherwood, is wrapped also in a deeper mystery. His origin. Where did he come from, this man of the forest? Was he born of noble blood, a lord cast down by cruel circumstance, or a simple yeoman, a man of the land, moved by a quiet yearning for justice? The truth lies somewhere between history and myth, softened by the passage of time. As you walk gently along the wooded path, allow your mind to rest on this uncertainty. The forest itself doesn't care for precision. It welcomes all who enter with open arms. In the same way, The stories of Robin's beginning shift and sway like branches in the wind, never fixed, always breathing. In some tellings, he is Robin of Locksley, a dispossessed nobleman whose lands were seized, leaving him no choice but to flee to the forest. There, stripped of title but not of honor, he finds purpose. This version paints Robin as a man of refinement and skill, trading sword for bow and castle for canopy. It is a comforting idea that nobility of spirit might outshine nobility of birth. But in other versions, he is no nobleman at all. He is simply Robin Hood, a yeoman, a free commoner, living close to the earth. A man with no grand estate, only a strong arm and a sharper sense of fairness. This Robin is born not of injustice done to him, but of the injustices he sees in the world around him. He is not cast out. He steps away, choosing the life of an outlaw not out of desperation, but of principle. Between these two portraits, there are countless shades. Some tales make him a returning crusader, disillusioned by the violence of distant wars. Others place him in different centuries altogether, roaming the greenwood during the reign of Richard the Lionheart, or even later, under King Edward's rule. The details change, but something essential remains. What matters most is not where Robin came from, but what he chose to become. He could have disappeared into bitterness or shadow, yet he chose the path of defiance that protects, of rebellion that heals. Whether he once held a title or merely a bow, he stepped into the woods and into the role of a protector, not for himself, but for others. As you wander the quiet glade, consider that gentle bravery. To see wrong and to act, not with rage, but with calm resistance. That is the Robin we follow tonight. The one who emerged from uncertain beginnings and found clarity beneath the trees. The breeze carries with it the scent of pine and old bark. A bird calls once and falls silent. Somewhere nearby, the soft twang of a bow echoes in your mind, not as a weapon, but as a signal, a vow made quietly to the forest, to the people, to what is just. Every legend, no matter how softly told, carries a moment of change, a gentle ripple where the ordinary gives way to the extraordinary. For Robin Hood, this moment is not marked by thunder or flame, but by something far quieter, a decision, a turning away from the path expected of him, and a step into the green shadows of another life. The stories differ, but they often center around a single event. Some speak of a confrontation in the king's forest, where Robin, perhaps in defense of a deer or his own freedom, defies a local official or guard. In these versions, he draws his bow not with fury, but with resolve, and in doing so, crosses a line from subject to outlaw. The act is small, almost unnoticed, yet it changes everything. Picture that moment now, as you stand in a quiet clearing. A young man, Robin, walks alone, the weight of the world not yet pressing heavily upon his shoulders. He sees a stag in the underbrush, its eyes wide but calm. There is reverence in his gaze, a connection. Then, voices behind him, harsh, commanding, perhaps cruel. A demand to stand aside, to yield. But something in Robin holds steady. The arrow flies, or perhaps it doesn't. Maybe the bow is never raised. Perhaps it is only a refusal to move, to bow, to speak the words of obedience expected. Whatever the case, that is the moment he becomes something new. Not a man of the court, not a servant of the law, but one who lives by a deeper truth, one carried on the breath of the forest itself. He flees, not in panic, but with purpose. Into the trees, into the arms of the land he will come to know as home. The forest closes behind him like a welcoming gate. He is alone, but not lost. For here, among the birdsong and the lichen-covered stones, he will build a life not of hiding, but of watching, of guarding, of protecting. This choice, whether born of necessity or belief, is not one made lightly. Yet it is made with calm certainty. He does not rail against injustice with anger, but counters it with careful thought and quiet defiance. It is here that his path begins, not as a warrior or a thief, but as a symbol of a different kind of power, one rooted in nature, in community, in the belief that wrong can be righted not by conquest, but by kindness, skill, and quiet courage. And so Robin Hood takes to the greenwood, not as a fugitive, but as a guardian. The first step has been taken. The turning point has passed. Ahead lies a life among leaves, with companions yet to be met, and stories waiting to unfold like petals in the sun. You step forward, deeper into the forest, walking beside him. The way is soft beneath your feet. The air is still. The tale moves on. As Robin Hood's life among the trees took shape, he was not destined to remain alone. Even the most solitary legends gather companions, kindred spirits who share in the quiet cause, who walk the same woodland paths, and whose presence offers warmth against the chill of exile. Among the first and dearest of these was a man named Little John. The story of their meeting, retold in many forms, is as gentle in tone as it is rich in charm. It begins on a narrow bridge spanning a brook deep within Sherwood's embrace. The water beneath it flows softly, whispering over smooth stones, catching bits of sunlight between leaves. The path to the bridge winds quietly through the trees, worn by the tread of deer and boots alike. One day, Robin finds himself approaching this very crossing when he sees a figure already stepping onto the bridge from the other end. Tall, remarkably tall, broad-shouldered, a staff in hand and a steady look in his eye. The man doesn't back away, and Robin, never one to yield lightly, steps forward as well. They meet in the center, above the waters. Hush, and for a long moment, neither speaks. There is no anger in the air, only a curious tension, like two rivers meeting at a bend. The bridge is too narrow for both to pass, and so the unspoken challenge rises between them. Not swords, not arrows, just staffs. A test of skill, not malice. What follows is not a fight in the traditional sense, but a dance of strength and balance. They trade gentle blows, thudding wood against wood, each trying to displace the other, neither cruel nor reckless. The brook watches silently, its waters glimmering in the shade. Finally, with a well-timed step and a nudge, the taller man knocks Robin into the stream below. There's a splash, a gasp, and then laughter. Robin rises, dripping and amused, wiping the water from his eyes with a chuckle. He holds no grudge. Instead, he invites the stranger to join him, to share a fire and a meal. The man, surprised and pleased, accepts. He gives his name, John Little. But Robin, ever the playful spirit, inverts the name, calling him Little John, a title both affectionate and enduring. Thus begins a friendship that will anchor many of the tales to come. Not forged in battle or blood, but in balance, respect, and shared laughter beneath the trees. Little John becomes a constant presence in Robin's life. His strength is legendary, yet his heart is gentle. He walks beside Robin not as a follower, but as an equal, a brother of the greenwood, sworn not by oath, but by mutual trust. In this quiet meeting on a simple bridge, we glimpse the soul of Robin's world. Not one built on dominance, but on fellowship. The forest welcomes more than one voice. It listens as they laugh together, their steps now aligned, moving deeper into the trees with the ease of those who know they've found a true companion. Amid the rustling leaves and camaraderie of outlaws, there is another presence in the greenwood, one whose role in the legend of Robin Hood is both quiet and profound. She is known to most as Maid Marian, but she is far more than a maiden or a companion. She is the stillness at the heart of the forest, the soft voice behind Robin's courage, and the soul of the story's gentlest moments. Marian's origins, like Robin's, drift across centuries of song and story. In some tellings, she is a noble woman, brave and proud, who leaves the comfort of court life to stand beside the man she loves beneath the canopy of leaves. In others, she is already a creature of the forest, independent and skilled, known for her grace and cunning long before she ever meets Robin. However she arrives, she is not drawn to the forest by romance alone. She, too, hears the call of justice. There's a quiet fire in Marian, one that glows not with fury, but with conviction. She doesn't need to shout or strike to be heard. Her presence is a calming one, a light that steadies rather than blinds. Picture her now in a sun-dappled glade, where wildflowers bloom in tufts between the roots of great oaks. She stands still, listening. A breeze catches the edge of her cloak. Her gaze is thoughtful, her movements assured. She is not waiting to be saved, nor needing to be protected. She is part of this place, just as Robin is. Her strength lies not in weapons, but in wisdom and clarity. She sees paths others miss. She brings balance where boldness threatens to overwhelm. To Robin, Marian is not an ornament to his story, but a companion in every sense. When they walk together, it is not he who leads. They walk side by side, often in silence, understanding flowing between them as easily as water between stones. Where Robin sees injustice and acts, Marian sees complexity and counsels. She reminds him of the heart behind the mission, not just the deeds, but the reasons behind them. Their bond is tender, yet rooted in something deeper than sentiment. It is the comfort of shared purpose, the warmth of knowing someone sees the world as you do, and yet differently enough to keep you honest. There are few grand declarations between them, just glances across campfires, quiet laughter over shared meals, and the sense that in a world of shifting shadows, they are steady for each other. The forest, too, seems to soften around her. Birds sing more sweetly. Streams flow more gently. With Marian among them, the band of outlaws becomes not just a group of rebels, but a chosen family, one bound by more than cause, bound by care. She may not always be in the foreground of the tale, but her song is always playing, soft and steady, beneath the leaves. The song of the heart, the one that steadies the bow, tempers the voice, and reminds us, even in the quiet, why we continued the journey. Among the many threads woven through Robin Hood's tale, none is more quietly enduring than this. He took from the rich and gave to the poor. A simple idea, carried in countless voices, sung in every corner of his legend. But tonight, let's approach this not as a slogan, nor as a call to arms, but as a gentle moral breath, an act of balancing scales long tilted. In the hush of the greenwood, Robin did not seek gold for gold's sake. He sought fairness, not vengeance, but restoration. The riches he reclaimed were not trophies, but tokens meant to warm cold hearths, fill empty baskets, and ease the burdens of those whose backs had long bent beneath the weight of unjust rule. Imagine him now, moving silently beneath the trees, his bow slung across his back, a satchel of coins in his hand. He does not march or command. He walks lightly, as one who knows the pain of those he helps. He knows the faces of the people, the miller's daughter with worn shoes, the shepherd boy with patched sleeves, the elderly couple who live just outside the reach of the law. He sees them not as victims, but as neighbors. And he helps not with speeches, but with gifts placed gently at doorways, with coin purses slipped onto windowsills, with food and firewood left behind without fanfare. The rich, in contrast, are rarely named. They are often faceless, barons and tacksmen whose ledgers outweigh their compassion. Robin's resistance is not personal, but principled. He chooses his targets with care, taking only what has been unfairly hoarded, and always without cruelty. His victories are not acts of domination, but of redirection, turning streams of wealth back toward the roots from which they sprang. And it's not always coin. Sometimes it is laughter. A prank played on a pompous lord. a feast denied to the greedy and shared instead with the hungry. His methods are clever, light-handed, and filled with a spirit that uplifts rather than destroys. His actions are lessons, not punishments. There's a gentleness in this kind of justice, a humility. Robin does not seek to become a ruler himself. He has no throne, no crown. His domain is the forest, his court the open glade, his law one of balance and care. He stands not above the people, but beside them. And those he aids, they do not chant his name or raise monuments. They whisper their thanks. They sing his story by firelight. They remember him not for what he took, but for what he gave, hope, when it was needed most. As you walk this part of the forest trail, picture those quiet gifts. The joy of a child finding a warm cloak left outside the door. The relief in a mother's eyes as she discovers flour and apples by the hearth. The wonder in the faces of those who thought they'd been forgotten, only to find they had been seen all along. This is the heart of Robin's rebellion, not in arrows or ambushes, but in kindness delivered by unseen hands. A soft defiance. Break. Time wasimonos. A steady, silent promise that no one should go without when the world has enough for all. When we think of Robin Hood, our minds often drift to daring rescues and quiet justice. But there is another side to his tale, one filled not with tension, but with joy, quiet, earthy, communal joy. And it takes place beneath the sheltering limbs of Sherwood's great trees, where laughter echoes softly, and the scent of roasting game drifts lazily through the leaves. These are the feasts beneath the trees. Not banquets of grandeur, but simple gatherings made rich by presence and purpose. Picture a clearing tucked away behind a curtain of vines and thickets. The sun filters down in golden shafts. A fire crackles low at the center. Around it sit the familiar faces of the greenwood. Little John, his voice warm and booming, Much the miller's son, with his quick wit and eager hands. Friar Tuck, chuckling over a jug of something hearty, and, perhaps most quietly, Marian, her eyes reflecting the flames as she listens to the voices around her. Robin sits among them, not at the head, not apart, but beside. His posture is easy, his smile unforced. Here, there is no plan to be made, no mission in motion. Only the meal, the company, the moment. The food itself is modest, bread baked in coals, roots pulled from the earth and softened in stew, wild herbs gathered at first light, and sometimes a gift from the hunt. There is no opulence, but there is abundance. Everything is shared freely, a portion for each, and more for those who arrive late, for none are ever turned away. These moments matter. They are the thread that binds the band of outlaws, not just in cause, but in kinship. Around the fire, titles are forgotten. No one speaks of loss or exile. They speak instead of dreams, of memories, of songs. Sometimes there is music, played on a simple pipe or a hand-carved lute. The melodies are old and familiar, weaving between the trees like smoke. There is laughter too, not loud or brash, but warm. The kind that rises unexpectedly when stories are shared, when jokes fall gently, when hearts feel light. Even in a life shaped by secrecy and sacrifice, these stolen hours of celebration offer something lasting: belonging. The forest itself seems to join in. The breeze carries the warmth of the fire outward. Owls peer down in quiet approval. The stars begin to blink through the darkening canopy above, and their light is soft, not cold. In these feasts, the forest becomes more than a refuge. It becomes a home. It is easy, in tales of resistance, to focus only on the fight. But Robin's legend reminds us that joy is also a form of defiance. To sit together, to laugh, to break bread under a sky that belongs to no king, this too is a kind of freedom, one that nourishes more than the body. As the feast lingers on and the fire dies to embers, the band of friends leans in close. Voices grow hushed. Someone hums a lullaby. The air is heavy with sleep and peace. And in this quiet, we see the true heart of the greenwood, not only a place of hiding or resistance, but a place of rest, of love, of life lived gently. For every light in legend, there is often a shadow, not to overwhelm it, but to define it gently by contrast. In Robin Hood's story, that shadow walks in the form of the Sheriff of Nottingham. He is not a villain in the way of roaring tyrants or cruel beasts. Rather, he is a quiet nemesis, a symbol more than a man, representing the weight of power without compassion, law without balance. The sheriff does not live in the forest. His place is among stone walls, tall gates, and polished floors. He belongs to the towns and courts, where decisions are made with ink on parchment rather than with understanding. His world is one of ledgers and taxes, of oaths and titles. And though he rarely shouts or strikes, his reach is felt in every sack of grain taken, every coin demanded, every door closed against the poor. Imagine him now, not as a monster, but as a figure moving through quiet corridors. His steps are measured, his robe fine and pressed. He carries himself with pride, not the pride of wisdom, but of order maintained. He believes in his role, in the system he upholds. To him, Robin is not a threat because of arrows or outlawry, but because he reminds people that justice can live outside the lines drawn by power. The sheriff is not without intelligence. He is patient, watchful. He sends his men into the forest not recklessly, but deliberately, always searching, never quite catching. And perhaps there is something deeper behind his gaze, some small recognition that Robin Hood speaks to a truth he cannot admit, that the people cheer the outlaw, not because they are disloyal, but because they long to be seen. Yet he continues. He sets traps, raises taxes, tightens laws. He stands at the edge of Sherwood and gazes into the green, seeing not trees, but a challenge to everything he was taught to protect. And he cannot walk among those trees without losing himself. The forest does not bend to rules. It listens only to hearts. The sheriff's presence in the story is steady and cold, like stone in a stream. He does not rage. He persists. He represents what Robin resists, not merely a man, but a way of thinking. A world where justice is written, not felt. Where law is fixed, regardless of who it helps or harms. And yet, even he is not beyond understanding. In some tellings, there is a weariness to him, a sense that he, too, is caught in a role he did not choose. That behind the official's cloak is a man unsure of how to reach the people, how to listen, how to soften. But he cannot change. Not while the law remains his only lantern in the dark. And so, he remains just outside the forest's reach. A reminder that even gentle resistance has its watchers. That every flicker of freedom draws the eye of those who fear its light. Still, Robin walks unafraid. Not to challenge the sheriff directly, but to show another way. To live in the forest as a whisper of what might be if law could be softened by care and order tempered by kindness. If the Sheriff of Nottingham was the shadow cast by order, then Robin Hood was the flickering light that danced just out of reach. Their story was never one of direct confrontation, but of contrast, of wit and guile playing softly against weight and formality. In this delicate dance, Robin never needed to raise his voice or his hand. His cleverness was quiet, his victories unforced. These were not grand battles, but small, clever games. A disguise here, a false trail there, a clever turn of phrase, a moment of misdirection followed by sudden absence. Robin's triumphs came not through force, but through an understanding of people and pattern, a kind of gentle mischief, guided by a firm sense of right. Imagine him now, walking into Nottingham Market, his cloak drawn close, his eyes bright with calm amusement. No one recognizes him. Perhaps he wears the robes of a friar or the garments of a merchant. He strolls past the sheriff's men, pausing at stalls, offering a few coins to the needy with a smile, all while gathering whispers of coming plans. He doesn't need to hide in the shadows. He walks in plain sight, simply not being seen for who he is. In these stories, Robin's victories often come from observation and timing. He knows when to speak and when to stay silent. Break, time, one points out. He notices the rhythm of a guard's patrol, the look of hesitation in a merchant's eyes, the way gold changes hands with reluctance or greed. He studies the world not to control it, but to navigate it gently. There is a delight in this way of resistance, a kind of playfulness that lightens the heaviness of struggle. Robin uses laughter as a lever, surprise as a shield. His greatest tools are not his arrows, but his instincts and his ability to see beyond the surface of things. And even when he is discovered, when the sheriff's men give chase through winding alleys or forest paths, Robin rarely fights. Instead, he outpaces them. He knows the turns of the road, the hidden hollows in the earth, the streams whose beds can be followed without leaving footprints. He escapes not by overpowering, but by understanding. The forest is his ally, its every twist and root an extension of his will. These games are not cruel. They are never designed to harm, only to disrupt, to remind those in power that cleverness and courage, when paired, are not easily overcome. And so, time after time, the sheriff is left grasping at smoke, while Robin vanishes with a chuckle, a song, or a trail of redistributed gold. These moments of guile are not merely tricks. They are expressions of freedom, of a mind unbound by fear or convention. Robin's joy in the game is not vanity, but a quiet declaration that power without compassion will always falter, and that a gentle heart, paired with a clever mind, can rewrite even the most rigid tales. As you walk through this part of the story, picture him now, pausing at the edge of the forest, turning just once to smile at those who sought to catch him, then disappearing into the green, his footsteps swallowed by moss and mist, his spirit still laughing softly on the wind. As the centuries unfold like leaves in an endless forest, some stories fade while others grow stronger, rooted deeper with every telling. Robin Hood's tale is among the latter, resilient, evergreen, bending gently to the winds of time without ever breaking. He began as a whisper in a ballad, and yet here we are, still walking the green paths of Sherwood, still feeling the steady presence of a man who may never have existed, yet never truly disappeared. Long after the first songs were sung beside firesides and under stars, the legend of Robin Hood traveled beyond the forests of Nottinghamshire. It passed from minstrel to monk, from parchment to print, changing shape but not spirit. In each era, Robin re-emerged with new color, new form, sometimes a rough bandit with sharp edges, sometimes a noble hero with chivalric charm, but always holding firm to his core. The earliest written ballads, rough and vivid, painted Robin as a bold outlaw, challenging the cruelty of sheriffs and monks. These versions were not always kind, but they were honest reflections of their time, a time when the poor had little, and legends offered solace. Over the centuries, he was softened. In the Elizabethan age, he became more courtly, more romantic. The Victorian era crowned him with moral polish, a paragon of fairness and restraint. In each retelling, he was reshaped to fit the hopes and fears of the people who needed him. But the soul of Robin Hood never vanished. The bough, the green cloak, the laughter beneath trees, all these stayed. His resistance, though quiet, was constant. His commitment to kindness, unwavering. Whether fighting with words or with wit, he remained a figure who acted not out of selfishness, but for others. Robin's legend drifted into books, plays, and later, the glow of screens. His voice echoed in every adaptation, sometimes loud, sometimes softened to a whisper. And yet, despite the costumes and the names that changed, People always knew him. They recognized him in the moment someone stood up for another, gave quietly to those in need, or dared to dream of a better world. Children learned his name almost before they could read. His face adorned stage masks, movie reels, and storybooks. But most powerfully, he lingered in the quiet parts of the imagination, in those moments when we pause to consider fairness, to resist cruelty with courage, to share not because we must, but because we can. And through it all, the forest remains. Not just Sherwood, but any place where the wild things grow, where laws fade and values emerge. In every generation, someone finds their way to that forest. Maybe not with bow and cloak, but with purpose. They carry his spirit in small acts, in soft defiance, in love made visible. So the tale endures, not because Robin was real, but because what he represents is justice tempered by joy, rebellion softened by heart, the enduring hope that even in a world of power and control, a single soul beneath the trees can make a difference. You are now part of that long line of listeners. You carry his story with you, and in quiet moments, when the wind shifts and the world grows still, perhaps you'll hear him, just ahead, just out of sight, smiling once more through the trees. Even as the world beyond the forest changes, castles crumbling, kingdoms rising and falling, cities stretching skyward, Robin Hood remains, not in stone or scripture, but in story, in memory, in the quiet spaces between what is and what might be. He is more than a man now. He is a symbol that moves softly through time, wearing the greenwood like a second skin. To speak of Robin as a hero is to speak not of grand battles or thrones won, but of something gentler, more enduring. He is the hero who steps aside so others may pass, who gives without expecting reward, who hides, not from fear, but to protect what matters. His is not the path of glory, but of grace. In every version of the tale, there comes a moment, sometimes spoken, sometimes only implied, when Robin grows older. The forest remains unchanged, but he begins to slow. His steps are quieter still. His smile just a touch more wistful. He watches the next generation laugh beneath the trees, string their bows, recite the stories he once lived. And in that, he finds peace. For Robin's true victory is not in how long he lived, or how many foes he evaded, but in how many hearts he touched. His presence, like a gentle wind, continues to stir the leaves of imagination. He is not a monument or a crown. He is a whisper, a feeling, a call to something better. Perhaps he slips away in the end, walking alone into the dusk, his figure swallowed by shadow and foliage, leaving only footprints that soon fade beneath the soft tread of deer. Or perhaps he remains in Sherwood still, unseen by the eyes of the waking world, but always there, watching, waiting, smiling. Children still play at being Robin Hood beneath sun-dappled trees. Grown men and women remember the thrill of those games, the sense of freedom, of fairness, of daring kindness. The legend we carry is less about facts and more about the longing it meets within us. The need for someone who stands between wrong and right, not with wrath, but with wisdom. Robin's Forest has no fixed boundaries. It may lie in the heart of England, or in the pages of a book, or in the quiet resolve of someone who chooses to help another despite the cost. Wherever compassion meets courage, wherever injustice is faced with cleverness and calm, the spirit of Robin walks. He belongs not to history, but to humanity. And so he endures, not in the clamor of chronicles, but in the gentle hush of story told beneath a canopy of stars. A hero not made of steel or fire, but of wood and wind, of laughter and longing, forever walking the greenwood, forever kind, forever free. And now, we come to the end of our journey. The forest, once so alive with footsteps and song, settles into stillness. The evening deepens. The sun lowers its golden gaze beyond the treetops, and everything seems to exhale, slowly, quietly, gently. The tale of Robin Hood has been told once more. Not shouted, but whispered, as softly as the breeze that moves through Sherwood's branches. You've walked with him through shaded paths, watched the flicker of firelight among friends, listened to the laughter of feasts, and felt the weightless defiance of quiet justice. And now, as the embers glow low and the night deepens, it is time to rest. The leaves above sway lazily in the wind, casting dappled shadows over the forest floor. In the hush, the voices of the past become a soft hum, fading into the calm. The bough is unstrung. The green cloak is folded. The stories find their place among the roots and the stars. You may imagine Robin there still, seated against the broad trunk of an ancient oak, his eyes half closed, listening to the sounds of the forest around him. The owls calling gently from their perches, the rustle of small creatures returning to their burrows, the pulse of the land, slow and steady, like a lullaby woven from moss and moonlight. He doesn't need to speak. He is content to be part of the forest now, as much a part of it as the stone and the stream, the fern and the fox. His story no longer runs forward. It settles in place, not an ending, but a resting. And you too may rest now. Let the rhythm of his tale cradle you. Let the forest's soft darkness surround you. Let the paths of Sherwood fade gently into dreams. The legend of Robin Hood lingers, but it does not ask for your attention. It is simply there, like the breath you take, like the warmth of a remembered fire, a gentle companion in the quiet of sleep. So close your eyes if you haven't already. Feel your body grow heavy, your breath deepen. The story is done. The forest is still, and sleep, like a soft cloak, wraps around you. Thank you for joining me on tonight's journey. I hope it brought you a little peace, a little wonder, and a little closer to rest. Until next time, sweet dreams.